Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video, a fresh start to the week and a fresh week of trading. So pretty exciting stuff. The weekend, honestly, sometimes it's so boring. It just feels like nothing to look at. Like I just like having this to look at daily. Anyway, all that being said and done, as usual, right? I want to go over the Tesla. We're going to go over the market. We'll go over what happened, what we can expect. Not a huge week, but a potentially decently big week, especially end of the week because we have Tesla delivery numbers coming out for Q1 because this is the last week of Q1. Potentially this coming weekend, potentially Sunday, which can affect potentially the Thursday and Friday trading days into the weekend. For of course expecting such numbers, potentially pretty important numbers to come out. The expectation is 420,000 cars, which is more than and I think Q4 was like 407 or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but nonetheless. So, potentially a pretty big end of the week, catalyst, if you will, for Tesla. But nonetheless, Tesla looking like it is going to be, not looking like, literally has closed the day at pretty much exactly 75% or 0.75% up. I mean, 75% up would be pretty insane. 0.75% up, which is going to put us at just shy of $192 compared to the market itself. Tesla performing arguably, better than average. But all that being said, let's just dive right into it. If you guys enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. Of course, I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Make your own decisions, do your own research, all that good stuff. But moving into a Tesla, pretty interesting day, but it's arguably a weekday. And I say a weekday mainly because Tesla did open up the day pretty decently high, right? I mean, compared to yesterday's close, we did actually start the day at open up about 2%, right? Up about 2% as the day started. And then we rallied even higher. So Tesla was actually up from, of course, Friday's close, up at one point, almost like, 3.7%-ish, right? That's a decent amount, right? Compared to the market not performing as well as that, of course. Now, all that being said and done, however, the fact that Tesla gave up the majority of those gains is not great. It's not something that you really want to see, but it's really not all that bad yet. And the reason I say it's not all that bad yet is because, well, as you can see very evidently here, Tesla is still very much in this kind of upward channel that we are still in on the short-term basis. And like I said, and I said this several times, Tesla did gap up, by the way, yesterday's gap, which is good, or not yesterday, I guess Friday's gap, which is good, and it held it, which is good. But like I said several times, as long as Tesla is technically still within this channel, like to me, Tesla is still technically short-term bullish. Like, as long as it's maintaining this channel, as long as it's maintaining this overall level, and as long as it's maintaining like above like 188 as well, like 188-ish, and of course also being in this channel are the two main keys I would be, or catalysts, if you will, or whatever I would be looking at, to determine whether or not Tesla can still maintain some short-term bullish momentum, or if it's time to finally actually collapse, truly collapse. That's essentially those like the two main things I'll be personally looking at, and I'm continuing to look at. So with that being said, of course, as Tesla is still within this channel, I don't think it's looking that bad just yet. However, it is definitely hugging, thin ice over here. It's dancing on thin ice. It did that on Friday, it held, and now it's doing the exact same thing today, but so far also holding, though the close is right at the line essentially. So not a very convincing close, but still technically, passable. Let's just say that. So keep that in mind. That's important to understand, right? So another thing to look at that I'm looking at here on the 1 hour is the RSI, right? I'm a very big RSI person. I like the RSI personally. It has served me quite well if you use it correctly. Of course, there's many ways to use it incorrectly. If you use it correctly, at least what I think is correct, it's personally served me quite well for the most part. However, with that being said, you can see that Tesla, right? So as we're kind of trading within this range right here, you can see it's actually lower than what this was over here, but this was all the way back when we were trading at like 184, or even down here when we were trading at 182, right? So the RSI is actually at the same level, if not lower than these levels, even though the stock is meaningfully higher than these, like this average of a level, a solid like 4.5% higher average of what this level was back when the RSI was the same, if not higher than where we are right now. So that's an arguable bearish divergence. I wouldn't say it's the most obvious bearish divergence because this anomaly still exists over here, which kind of, disproves it slightly. So it's not something that I would still put that much weight into as of this very day, but it is something to, again, like I said on Friday, it is something to slowly start considering that, this is potentially developing a storm, right? It's kind of like if you see like a massive storm just way out ahead of you, and you're not really sure if it's heading your way or not, but you see it, and you see that, it's brewing and it's there, but you're not really sure, is it coming here? Maybe it's already passed, maybe it's going the other way entirely. You're not entirely sure, but you're kind of just assuming that, there's a chance that it's coming to our way, right? That's kind of what I'm trying to say with this right here. It's nothing too crazy or concerning just yet, but it might be. You know what I mean? So just keep an eye out for that. That's, in my opinion, pretty Pretty important, right? So that's kind of those are the major things I'm personally looking at, right? The RSI developing into a bearish divergence, holding this channel, and also, of course, holding above the 188-ish level as well. Those are the three main things I'm looking at. Now, like I said before, if Tesla does break down from this channel. So actually, one thing I added over the weekend, because I view a lot of people's opinions, that these people I personally, whose opinions I value, I guess you can say, and I try to see, what are other people that are, who I deem, smart and TA and whatnot, what are they thinking, and then there was one person that I did see, I forgot who it was exactly, but there was one person that I did see talking about how Tesla arguably has broken out of a bull flag. Now, this bull flag is a little bit, sketch, but you can argue it looks something like this, right? You can definitely make this argument right here, and then you can argue that Tesla not only broke out of this bull flag right here on this candle, but it came back and pretty much more or less retested it right here, and then it can potentially, successfully retest and continue to rally up. So this is what I say, where trading is never 100% and it's never guaranteed, and it's honestly a massive matter of perspective sometimes, you know what I mean? Because you can look at it in two ways. You can look at it in a bullish perspective here, where, okay, cool, Tesla, ran up and it had a massive bull flag, right? And it's a pretty plausible bull flag. Like, this is not, this is pretty plausible. Ran up, this is the pole, had a massive bull flag, and now it arguably broke out of it, right? That's a possibility. That's absolutely a possibility, and you can definitely make a claim for that, right? The other claim can be the fact that Tesla broke under very important levels, such as this overall level 190 to 188-ish level, broke back underneath that level, collapsed pretty aggressively, and now is essentially just having not either a dead cat and or a bear flag, which is what these two lines over here are. You know what I mean? Like these kind of going up to the right lines. Maybe it's just a bear flag. Maybe it's a bull flag that we just broke out of, right? That's why I think it's important to understand, and it's important to look at both perspectives, because it's a matter of perspective, and it's also, you want to look at these trend lines and see which one maybe cracks. Like, what if Tesla comes back underneath this line over here, right? That's pretty bad, and it comes into this arguable bull flag. Well, this was just a massive false breakout. That's pretty bearish. What if it does break underneath this bear flag line, the bottom line right here? Is that enough to push it downwards, right? There's all these different catalysts to consider that you want to always be paying attention to. It's never as simple as like, oh, it just broke out of the bull flag, it's time to moon, or oh, that's a bear flag, it's just going to collapse, and that means it has to collapse, and it means it's going to just completely crash, right? It's never guaranteed, and that's where a lot of people make the mistakes, right? You always have to consider not only both options, but also all the different potential catalysts and triggers, if you will, that can trigger a certain move to happen in a certain direction, right? So keep that in mind, right? But this is a kind of short-term movement right here, right? If we talk about more like longer-term movement, like let's say medium-term movement, right? Tesla is arguably sitting in a pretty, bullish pattern, inverted head and shoulders right here. That's a potential bullish pattern, but it also has a massive gap over here. That's a pretty bearish thing to see. Which one is going to fill? On top of that, the RSI is not looking that great. The RSI is itself kind of looking like a bear flag over here. Is it just nothing more than a bear flag? Could very much be. You have to consider all these things as well, right? And that's just, those are all the things that I'm personally looking at. And again, if you want this inverted head and shoulders pattern to kind of persist and not get invalidated, I personally think even if we come down to somewhere around this gap fill around 145, 150, and we do something like this instead, I still think that's a very valid inverted head and shoulders. That's extremely valid to me. That does not break it. To me, the only way an inverted head and shoulders, which is a bullish pattern, would essentially be invalidated is if Tesla ever enters the territory of the head, but there's not much territory to enter. We would have to pretty much collapse below 120 for it to get invalidated, in my opinion. Ideally, stay above 135-ish, 130, 135 ideally, but technically, as long as we never enter 125 to 120 and under, technically it's still valid in my opinion, right? That's just my opinion. That's how I view it, right? So that's something else you want to consider. You know what I mean? There's a lot of different aspects that you always want to consider in that regard. But all in all, ladies and gentlemen, those are the main things I'm personally looking at. Again, to very quickly reiterate, at least for the short term, maintain this upward trend that we are still technically in, though we're definitely on thin ice. And on top of that, you also really want to make sure that Tesla doesn't really collapse too far below 187 and 188, somewhere in that general range. But all that being said and done, that's kind of what I'm waiting for. And again, if you also wanted to play out to the top side, I forgot to mention, if the bulls want to see it actually rally back up to somewhere around this level of around 210 to 215, which we did talk about, which again, if we do get there, that could be extremely bearish, assuming we don't break above. So let's say Tesla rallies back up to around this level right here, and we do get rejected here, and we do get a lot of resistance and whatnot. All it's going to do is essentially play out the exact same pattern that we saw up here, and we'll essentially be playing out this situation right here, right? Pretty much the exact same pattern. I've talked about that, how this situation that we overall find ourselves in, this whole situation is exceptionally similar to this whole situation up there, right? I've talked about that in a previous video already several times, so if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. But, you know, that is something to consider. And, you know, if the bulls want to see it to come up to that level, you really want to see 200 get broken. If 200 gets broken to the upside, we most likely will come up to 210, 215. But then again, if we find massive resistance and we fail, that will be a pretty massive double top pattern, and that won't be really good. In fact, the QQQ is actually setting up that exact pattern right here, where you can see it's setting up a massive double top pattern right here, top and top. Pretty bearish looking pattern, and Tesla looks like it's potentially setting up almost the exact same thing right here. It's just a little bit behind. So just keep in mind, guys, those are all the things I'm personally looking at and how I'm viewing it. And in case you're wondering about my personal trades, I did make some pretty big moves. Well, not pretty big moves, but I did make some moves today, where essentially what I did was I closed out all my cash secured puts today. The short-term ones that were expiring this Friday, and I closed them all out. I essentially finished for the month in terms of the trades that I wanted to, you know, consider closed and done and finished, like, you know, what's the word I'm thinking of? Realized gains, if you will, from all my trades for this month. That's it. This month is done for me. I've already started for next month. I've already started selling cash secured puts for April, and April 21st, I believe it was. I pretty much just sold the same cash secured puts I had for this Friday, but for April instead, and I only have those open right now. I still have substantially more to sell, but again, in case Tesla does rally, I'll have a lot more premium I'll be able to absorb from these cash secured puts that I just resold for April 21st, to really bank off of a lot more profitably, if you will. And if we don't, and if we do collapse from here, that's perfectly fine with me. I'm okay with that, and I'll just sell a lot more because I have a lot more to sell if we do fall. But the volume, you can see, guys, is also a little bit lower. That's not great to see as well. So there's a lot of catalysts, guys. It's a pretty, we're in limbo, and in my opinion right now, in terms of like doing short-term trades, if you're buying options especially, I would personally be waiting. If you're selling options, it's a whole different story if you know what you're doing. But all that being said, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think down below, and I hope to see you guys tomorrow. Peace.